All right, to France now, where the first opinion poll since a snap election was called projects a win for the far-right National Rally. However, the party is forecast to fall short of an absolute majority. Across France, there have been protests against the far right after their win in Sunday's European Parliament elections. Most were peaceful, but there were some clashes with police. French President Emmanuel Macron dissolved the lower house of Parliament after the European election results, which saw his centrist coalition suffer a resounding defeat. Meanwhile, the leader of France's Conservative Republicans Party says that he's willing to form an alliance with the far-right National Rally. If it happens, it would mark the end of the mainstream conservatives' long refusal to work with the far right.
We need an alliance, remaining true to ourselves, avoiding the danger of the far left, which could soon have a majority in the National Assembly. We need an alliance.
An alliance with whom? With Marine Le Pen? Is that what you're telling us?
An alliance with the National Rally, with its candidates. An alliance of the right wing, with all those who identify with right-wing values. I think the country has never been so right-wing. It is waiting for the right. It is waiting for action from the right.
Joining me here in the studio now is Thibaut Madelin. He's the Berlin correspondent for the French publication Les Echos. It's good to see you, Thibaut. So we've got a mainstream party in France saying that it's willing to possibly get in bed with the far right. That is the crack in the dam, isn't it, before the water comes through?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a taboo has been broken today. Up until now, there was a consensus among the mainstream parties and even among the Conservative Party that you have to build a sort of cordon sanitaire since Jacques Chirac, a sanitary cordon, to contain the spread of the Rassemblement National. And we've seen cracks in that consensus over the last few years since Républicains have been squeezed between Macron's party on the center and the Rassemblement National on the far right. So it was perhaps, in a way, predictable, but, well, I didn't predict it myself.
Well, how do you explain it? I mean, was it, I guess, reflective of the trend in French politics, or was it more a protest vote that is just a one moment in time, and when the next elections come, maybe things will move back towards the center?
Well, it looks like a long-term shift, really. The parties, the far-right parties together, Rassemblement National and Reconquête, made last Sunday 40% of the votes. But you see over the last few years, their main themes, such as immigration, security, have been quite popular among the voters. And also, what plays an important role is Marine Le Pen's, the head of the Rassemblement National, her strategy to normalize the party. And it's becoming mainstream, really.
It must be working. And since you brought her up, let me ask you, can we soon realistically predict that we may in France have, in a few years, a Madame President Le Pen?
Well, I think the question is less and less theoretical. It's becoming clear now that there is a quite high probability that we have a Rassemblement National Prime Minister, which will be then not Marine Le Pen, but Jordan Bardella, the head of the party.
He's younger.
28-year-old leader who just had this success at the European election. So that would be the start, and perhaps one day also a president, Rassemblement National.
Is France as far right as it's ever been?
Yes, I think they've never been so strong, and it's hard to think that they might lose power or influence in the next few weeks, which may be Macron's bet while calling for snap election.
What is his bet here? I mean, what's the best case scenario for Emmanuel Macron?
Hard to tell, really. I think his idea is to say, we have a minority government, we can't govern really, so I need a clear answer whether are you behind me or not, and trying to bring Republican forces, as he calls them, behind him. but it might completely turn out as a failure, and having the Rassemblement National in power, his bet is probably, maybe, if that happens, to discredit the Rassemblement National and tell the people, well, you see, when you vote for them, you end up in chaos.
Chaos. A lot of people are wondering if there's going to be chaos in Paris. You've got the Olympics next month, and now you've got the snap elections. I mean, it looks like you could have the ingredients for a perfect storm, a hot summer, an ugly summer in France.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And it's probably part of his bet, really, to show, look, if you don't react, if you don't support me, this is what you're going to get. And we have, as you just said, the Olympic Games, and that would be rough days coming to us.
We hope it won't be, but yeah, it could be, that's for sure. Thibaut, Madelin, it's good to have you in the studio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get more from DW correspondent Sonia Phalnikar in Paris. Sonia, what does this announcement by the leader of the right-wing Republicans mean?
Well, Barish, this has caused, I have to say, quite a political earthquake here in France. This is all the French media is talking about right now. And that is because this is the first time really in modern French history that we're seeing the leader of a traditional party suggesting a tie-up with the far-right National Rally, which is anti-immigration and populist, and has in the past spent decades on the kind of political fringes. And so I think this is a historic departure from what is often in France is called the cordon sanitaire, or a firewall to keep the far right out. This is a red line being crossed by the Les Républicains. This is a party that kind of traces its history back to post-war leader Charles de Gaulle. It's the party of former presidents Jacques Chirac and Nicolas Sarkozy. Of course, this is now only the president of the Les Républicains, Eric Ciotti, who has said this. It has sparked quite a lot of outrage in his party, with some key leaders saying, he has to go, he has to resign. And the French media here are now saying that this traditional party is now in danger of almost imploding, because we're hearing voices from, for example, Macron's centrist party, who are, urging some leaders from the Les Républicains to jump ship and join their camp.
And meanwhile, left-wing parties have also started their own negotiations to form a political alliance. What have they decided?
That's true. I think what we're seeing today, and we will see in the next few days, are some, a flurry of negotiations between various political parties to try and form alliances, try to field candidates, draw up manifestos, and simply because they need to really speed up. There is not a lot of time. We have the first round of this election at the end of the month. On the left, yesterday we had a deal by the centre-left socialists and 3 other parties on the left, including a far-left party. They said they would, unite for the legislative elections as part of what they call a popular front to fight the far right, they say, racist project. In the meantime, we're seeing President Macron's centrist party also trying to rally moderate and centrist parties. On the far right, we're seeing them trying to band together, trying to form a far right alliance. So I think we're going to see quite a few alliances now, crystallizing on both the left and the right in France.
But aren't the polls showing that the far right is well ahead? And if that is the case, how does President Macron intend to use the coming few weeks before the election?
Well, President Macron is expected to hold a press conference tomorrow that was actually scheduled for today. And I expect we will hear a bit more there about his party's planned campaign. But I think Macron's party will probably frame this election as a kind of showdown between, their kind of pro-European, centrist, pro-Ukraine positions and the kind of anti-immigration, nationalist Euroscepticism of the far right. I think what Macron is trying to, kind of do here is trying to shake French voters out of their delusions about what a far right in power might look like. He has talked in the past about how their nationalism and xenophobia could pose a threat to France's democracy, economy, and rule of law. So I think he's kind of banking on the fact that French voters will be, spooked at the prospect of having a far right having them in government, forming a majority in the parliament, and that they will, go out and vote for moderate centrist parties. That is the hope. But whether that will work is really anyone's guess.
Sonia Phalnikar in Paris, thanks very much for that.